Day 677, Thursday, June 19th. Daniel 11:5-35 Supplementary reading. Daniel 11 NKJV with explanation, verses 1-35. 1. Also in the first year 539 BC of Darius the Mede aka Gubaru, governor of Babylon under Persian Emperor Cyrus the Great, even I God's angel, stood up to confirm and strengthen him Darius the Mede. 2. And now, in the third year of Cyrus 10:1, that is 5365 BC, I God's angel will tell you Daniel, the truth. Behold, after Cyrus's 3 more kings will arise in Persia, 1 Cambyses 530-522 BC, 2 Pseudo-Smyrtus, or Gaumata 522 BC, and the 422 to 4th Xerxes, 465 BC, husband to Esther, shall be far richer than them all. By his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of Greece. In one of the largest assaults of ancient history, he sent a vast force of hundreds of ships and 1,000,000 troops against the Greeks. 3. Then, 129 years later, a mighty king, Alexander the Great, 336-323 BC, shall arise, who shall rule with great dominion, as he was the next ruler in history with greater dominion than Xerxes, and do according to his will. He was unstoppable until his sudden death at age 33. 4. And when he Alexander has arisen, his kingdom shall be broken up at his death in 323 BC at the height of his achievements, and divided toward the 4 winds of heaven, ultimately, see end of verse, but not among his posterity, nor according to his dominion with which he ruled. An initial attempt to hold his empire together by a joint regency in the name of his nephew and his unborn son failed, and one of his generals, Antigonus, made a bid for power, for his kingdom shall be uprooted, even for others besides these. Within a few years the empire ended up split among 4 of Alexander's other generals, 1 Ptolemy Soter, 2 Seleucus Nicator, 3 Cassander, and 4 Lysimachus. 5. Also the king of the south, now Ptolemy the first Soter over Egypt, south of the Holy Land, shall become strong, ruled 323,285 BC, as well as one of his princes Seleucus first Nicator, who was originally a general under Ptolemy, and he Seleucus I shall gain power over him Ptolemy Thurs, and have dominion. Seleucus first eventually gained rule over Greater Syria, 311-280 BC. His Seleucus first dominion shall be a great dominion, over most of what had earlier been the Persian Empire, stretching from Syria to India, the largest part of Alexander's empire. From this point the angel focuses on 2 of the 4 divisions of Alexander's empire, the kingdom to the south of the Holy Land now being Egypt under the Ptolemies, and the kingdom to the north, now being Greater Syria under the Seleucids. 6. And at the end of some years 252 BC, 28 years after Seleucus I's death, they north and south shall join forces, for the daughter Berenice of the king of the south, now Ptolemy, 2nd, Philadelphus, 285-246 BC, shall go to the king of the north, now Antiochus, Theos, 261-246 BC, to make an agreement or peaceful arrangement. New American Standard Bible. That is a marriage to seal an alliance, requiring Antiochus II to put away his former wife Laodice, but she, Berenice, shall not retain the power of her authority, or her position of power nasp, and neither he Antiochus II nor his authority shall stand, but she Berenice shall be given up in death, with those who brought her her attendants, and with him who begot her her father Ptolemy II, and with him who strengthened her in those times, her husband Antiochus II. Berenice her father and her husband were all removed from power by death in 246 BC. When Berenice's father Ptolemy II died that year, her husband Antiochus II repudiated her, and took Laodice back as his wife. But later that year, Laodice, doubting Antiochus's faithfulness and anxious to secure the throne for his and her son Seleucus II Callinicus, murdered her husband, and had Berenice put to death as well. 7. But from a branch of her roots, offspring of Berenice's parents, that is a sibling, 1 her brother Ptolemy III Euergetes 246-221 BC, shall arise in his Ptolemy II's place, who shall come with an army in 245 BC, Enter the fortress Seleucia, the port of Syria's capital Antioch of the king of the north, now Seleucus II Callinicus, 246 to 226 BC, and deal with them. This was to avenge his sister's death and prevail. 8a. And he, Ptolemy III, shall also carry their gods captive to Egypt, with their princes and their precious articles of silver and gold. Ptolemy III carried immense wealth back to Egypt, including around 2,500 molten images and idolatrous vessels that Persian Emperor Cambyses had taken from Egypt in 526 BC. 8b. And he, Ptolemy III, shall continue more years than the king of the north Seleucus II. Ptolemy III ruled until his death in 221 BC, nearly 6 years after the death of Seleucus II of Syria in 226 BC. 9. Also the king of the north, actually just he, Seleucus II, shall come in an attempted attack to the kingdom, Egypt of the king of the south Ptolemy III, but shall return to his own land of Syria after failing to accomplish his purpose. 10. However, his Seleucus II's sons, Seleucus III, 227 to 223 BC, and Antiochus III, the great 223 to 186 BC, shall stir up strife, and assemble a multitude of great forces. Both assembled immense forces to fight Egypt, avenge their father, and recover their port and fortress, Seleucia, and one of them, Antiochus III, shall certainly come and overwhelm and pass through. Antiochus III recovered his fortress Seleucia after 27 years, and also conquered south into what was currently Egyptian territory as far as Gaza, including Judea. Then he, Antiochus III, shall return to his fortress and stir up strife, or be stirred up again. King James Version margin. 11. And the king of the south. Now Ptolemy IV Philopator, 221 to 204 BC, son of Ptolemy III, shall be moved with rage in 217 BC, and go out with an army of 20,000 at Raphia, and fight with him, that is, with the king of the north, Antiochus III, who shall muster a great multitude. But the multitude shall be given into the hand of his Antiochus III's enemy Ptolemy IV. 12a. When he, Ptolemy IV, has taken away the multitude, Ptolemy IV won the battle, his heart will be lifted up, and he will cast down tens of thousands. Ptolemy IV's army killed tens of thousands of Syrian troops, and he re-annexed Judea to Egypt. 12b. But he, Ptolemy IV, will not prevail. In making a rash and hasty peace with Antiochus III and returning to indulgent living, Ptolemy IV did not secure Egypt's victory. 13. For the king of the north, Antiochus III, will return and muster a multitude greater than the former, and shall certainly come at the end of some years with a great army and much equipment. After Ptolemy IV died in 204 BC and left his throne to his infant son, Ptolemy V Epiphanes, Antiochus III assembled a great army and attacked Egypt in 201 BC. Now in those times many, Antiochus III having made an alliance with Philip V of Macedonia and others, shall rise up against the king of the south. Now Ptolemy V Epiphanes 203,181 BC. Also, violent men of your Daniel's people, Jews attempting to help Antiochus III, shall exalt themselves in fulfillment of the vision, but they shall fall. 15. So the king of the north, Antiochus III, shall come and build a siege mound, and take a fortified city, defeating Sidon in 198 BC, and the forces of the south Egypt under the boy king. Ptolemy V shall not withstand him. Even his Ptolemy V's choice troops shall have no strength to resist. 16. But he, Antiochus III, who comes against him, Ptolemy V, shall do according to his Antiochus III's own will, and no one shall stand against him. Antiochus III. He, Antiochus III, shall stand in the glorious land, Holy Land, with destruction in his power. Following the battle of Panium in 198 BC, Antiochus III wrested control of Judea from Egypt yet again. 17. He, Antiochus III, shall also set his face to enter with the strength of his whole kingdom, and upright ones, literally equitable things. A proposal of peace, nas, that is a marriage to seal an alliance with him, thus shall he, Antiochus III, do. And he, Antiochus III, in 198 BC, shall give him the young Ptolemy V, the daughter of women, Antiochus III's daughter Cleopatra, to destroy it. That is, to destroy or undermine Egypt so as to eventually take possession of it. But she Cleopatra shall not stand with him her father Antiochus III, or be for him as she sided instead with her husband. That the whole thing was a trick can be seen in the fact that Antiochus III promised southern Syria and Judea as a dowry but did not deliver them. 18. After this in 197 to 196 BC, he Antiochus III shall turn his face to the coastlands, beginning a vigorous campaign against the coastlands and islands of Asia Minor and the Aegean, and shall take many. At this point, in 195 BC, Antiochus III provides asylum for Hannibal of Carthage, whom the Romans had defeated in the Second Punic War, and Hannibal assists Antiochus in landing in Greece in 192 BC. Antiochus is thus brought into conflict with Rome. But a ruler Roman general Lucius Cornelius Scipio Asiaticus shall bring the reproach of defeat that's against them Asia Minor and the Aegean coasts to an end, and with the reproach removed, he Scipio shall turn it, the reproach of defeat, back on him, Antiochus III. Scipio utterly defeated Antiochus III at the Battle of Magnesia in 190 BC. 19. Then he Antiochus III shall turn his face toward the fortress of his own land, but he shall stumble and fall, and not be found. Having lost all he had gained, Antiochus III tried in 186 BC to recoup his losses by plundering the temple of Belus in Elymais, within his own kingdom, whereupon he was defeated by local forces and killed. 20. There shall arise in his Antiochus III's place his son Seleucus IV Philopator, 187 to 170, 6 BC, who imposes taxes on the glorious kingdom, sending the tax collector Heliodorus through Judea in an effort to raise money for his financially distressed empire, but within a few days he Seleucus IV shall be destroyed. He ruled only 11 years in contrast to his father's rule of 37 years, but not in anger or in battle. He was poisoned by Heliodorus, who took control with the backing of other Syrian officials, tired of the excesses of the Seleucid rulers. 21. And in his Seleucus IV's place shall arise a vile person, Antiochus IV Epiphanes, Seleucus IV's brother, a younger son of Antiochus III, to whom they Syrian officials supporting Heliodorus will not give the honor of royalty, but he Antiochus IV shall come in peaceably and seize the kingdom by intrigue. By a show of Roman manners, and a great deal of flattery, he was able to enlist the aid of neighboring King Eumenes II, of Pergamum, and officials at home in forcing out Heliodorus and obtaining the throne, ruled 175,164 BC. 22. With the force of a flood, those who opposed him, including Heliodorus, shall be swept away from before him, Antiochus IV, and be broken, and also the prince of the covenant, a Hellenistic Jew who changed his name to the Greek form Jason, appointed by Antiochus IV as replacement high priest of the Jewish worship system, ca. 175 to 172 BC. He was dropped from that position only 3 years later, in favor of another Hellenizing apostate, Menelaus ca. 172 to 162 BC. 23. And after the league, treaty or agreement is made by the Jews with him Antiochus IV, he Antiochus IV shall act deceitfully, for he shall come up and become strong with at first only a small number of people. He shall enter peaceably, even into the richest places of the province, invading Galilee. And he shall do what his fathers have not done, nor his forefathers. He shall disperse among them the plunder, spoil, and riches, and he shall devise his plans against the strongholds. But only for a time. Antiochus IV took from the rich and gave to the poor as a temporary ploy to gain fanatical support among the masses. 25a. He Antiochus IV shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south. Now Ptolemy VI Philometor 181 to 145 BC, son of Ptolemy V and Cleopatra, and nephew of Antiochus IV with a great army. And the king of the south, Ptolemy VI, shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army. Egypt threatened war to claim the dowry that had been promised by Antiochus III for Cleopatra, the now deceased mother of Ptolemy V, and sister of Antiochus IV. Therefore Antiochus IV marched south in 171 BC, with an immense Syrian army, yet met his nephew Ptolemy VI, leading another immense army from Egypt. 25 billions, but he Ptolemy VI shall not stand, for they see next verse shall devise plans against him. 26 Yes, those who eat of the portion of his delicacies, Ptolemy VI's own trusted officers shall destroy him his chance at victory by plotting against him. His army shall be swept away, and many shall fall down slain. Antiochus IV was victorious at Pelusium, took his nephew Ptolemy VI captive and marching to Memphis, proceeded to use him as a tool to reduce the overall strength of Egypt. 27. Both these kings, Antiochus IV's and Ptolemy VI's hearts, shall be bent on evil, and they shall speak lies at the same table, perhaps describing the occasion in 174 BC, when Antiochus IV and Ptolemy VI both sat at a banquet together, with Antiochus pretending to ally himself with the young Ptolemy against his brother Euergetes II, but with each actually trying to deceive the other, but at this lying to get ahead of the other shall not prosper, for the end will still be at the appointed time as God had predetermined it. 2008. Antiochus IV in 168 BC, while returning to his land Syria with great riches, plunder from Egypt, his heart shall be moved against the holy covenant Jewish worship system. So he shall do damage, looting the temple of many golden vessels and massacring Jews upon coming back from Egypt, and then return to his own land Syria. 29a At the appointed time later in 168 BC, he Antiochus IV shall return and go toward the south, upon learning of Ptolemy VI and Ptolemy VII forming a union against him. 29 billions, but the outcome shall not be successful like the former or the latter. 30a For ships from Cyprus, literally Kittim, Hebrew for western lands and here meaning Rome, shall come against him. Forced to accept surrender terms from Popilius, commander of the Roman fleet, Antiochus IV had to cease from his campaign against Egypt and restore the island of Cyprus to Egyptian rule. 30 billions. Therefore he Antiochus IV shall be grieved, and return in rage against the holy covenant Jewish worship system, and do damage. So he shall return, and show regard for those who forsake the holy covenant. Returning home through Judea, Antiochus IV vented his fury on the Jews, yet accorded special favor to those among them who rejected their religion and adopted the pagan Greek Hellenistic culture. Still in 168 BC forces shall be mustered by him Antiochus IV, and they his forces shall defile the sanctuary fortress, the temple, by sacrificing a pig on the temple altar. Then they, Antiochus IV's forces, shall take away the daily sacrifices, making them and other Mosaic ceremonies illegal, and place there the abomination of desolation, an image of the Greek god Zeus. Those who do wickedly against the covenant apostate Jews, he Antiochus IV shall corrupt with flattery, and many Jews did succumb to Antiochus IV's persecution against the faithful and reward for apostasy, and forsook their religion. 32 billions. But the people who know their God, the Maccabees, patriotic followers of Judas Maccabeus of the Hasmonean priestly dynasty, who wanted to continue in God's law, and later the Christians shall be strong, and carry out great exploits. Due in large part to the efforts of the Maccabees, Syrian forces were gradually driven out and Jewish independence was re-established. The time frame now changes. Verse 32 is apparently dual in application. The people who know their God referring to both the Maccabees and also to true Christians. This dual meaning serves to advance the story flow to the time of New Testament Christians. 33. And those of the people who understand Christians shall instruct many, yet for many days they shall fall. In death by sword and flame, by captivity and plundering. Christians have been martyred since the days of Christ and the apostles. 34. Now when they fall they shall be aided with a little help, even a little of God's Spirit providing the tremendous ability to remain steadfast in the face of martyrdom. But many shall join with them by intrigue, false prophets coming among them. Acts 20:29-30, 2 Peter 2:1-3. 35. And some of those of understanding shall fall, to refine them, purify them, and make them white, until the time of the end, because it is still for the appointed time. This process that began in Christ's day will continue until the time of his return to refine the character of Christians and make them spiritually white, or pure. Revelation 6:9-11, compare 7:14. End.